Hello and welcome to this Tech Talk session on Extreme's new Universal Hardware and Licensing. Thanks for joining me for this session. My name's Simon Inns and I'm an Extreme Systems Engineer based in Stockholm, Sweden. We're going to start with a brief presentation around Universal Hardware, and then we're going to have a demonstration of the Universal Hardware onboarding and how the persona of the hardware can be changed to give you a practical feel for the topics I'll be covering. So firstly, the agenda. I'm going to walk quickly through the features of our two universal hardware switching platforms, the 5520 and the 5420, and then give a little information on the upcoming 5320, which is yet to be fully announced. Then, in keeping with this universal theme, I'll walk through the universal licensing that accompanies the new hardware. And after that, I'm going to hand over to a colleague who's going to give you a practical demonstration of the new hardware and the concepts that I'll be discussing. So, without further ado, let's get on with it. Probably the most important questions about anything new are what is it and why should I care? So I'm going to start with a brief explanation of the universal hardware and the benefits that it can provide. In essence, universal hardware is a concept that's designed to be easy to use. Instead of having multiple hardware platforms for different switching operating systems such as VOS and XOS, we will now have a single set of platforms that can be configured according to your needs and are capable of running different operating systems. If you need VOS for Fabric, just onboard the switch and run. If, for example, you need XOS's advanced edge policy capabilities, just onboard and run. Later, if you find the need to change your mind, you can swap persona at will, and you can swap the persona as often as you require. Universal hardware is also designed to be even easier to deploy. Simply give the management interface the serial number of the switch, tell it what persona you want, and power up the hardware. The cloud-based management GUI takes care of the rest, even allowing you to pre-select network policies to be automatically applied to get that hardware up and running quickly, accurately, and simply. Last but not least, universal hardware allows us to simplify the overall purchasing complexity. By consolidating hardware and the complicated mix of base switches, power supplies, fans, and other modules, the overall complexity is greatly reduced. And at the same time, we're also simplifying the software licensing too. So it's worth reiterating this a little. Universal hardware provides singular hardware platforms that can be used for many different use cases. Less complexity makes it easier to configure and purchase, and provides reduced complexity for other things like spare parts management. You can, on the fly, select the network operating system, and you have the ability to change operating system as often as required. But crucially, the universal approach automates much of the user's experience. So instead of different CLIs and hardware peculiarities, you get one consistent cloud-driven GUI experience, and that experience is consistent for all of the universal hardware. So let's move a little more into specifics and look at the recently released 5520 Universal Hardware Switch. Unsurprisingly, the primary advantage of the 5520 is the universal hardware itself. It's simpler to use, it's far more adaptive for a wide range of use cases, and it's cloud ready out of the box. You onboard the switch into Cloud IQ, select the persona and the configuration policies that you require, then you boot up and enjoy some hard-earned coffee. The zero-touch onboarding will take over and get the switch ready for you. Of course, as with any advanced switch, it's never as simple as having one single hardware variant. Different scenarios call for different variations. So the 5520 is in fact 7 unique models, offering a choice of 24 and 48 ports, 1 gig, multi-gig and 10 gig connectivity, as well as 30, 60 and 90 watt PoE. Of course, you also now have the choice of using the VOS persona when building a fabric network, for example, or XOS for extended edge switching. The 5520 can also provide Xcyq, as well as a range of modules to support various uplink requirements. Here's a close-up of the 5520 showing the front and rear panel configurations. You can see the built-in XOS stacking ports, the Vim module slot, as well as the redundant modular fans and power supply slots on the back of the unit. So here are the 7 models, non-PoE, multi-rate and PoE, as well as a fiber model. The licensing is simple too, with just a Premier license and a Xcyq license optionally available. let's look at that again in the table. You can see here that even with the Vim uplink modules included in the list, it represents a far simpler range of choices. The available Vims provide 10 gig, 10 gig with Xcyq, and 25 gig uplinks. So next up, let's have a closer look at those two licenses and see how they compare to Extreme's previous licensing schemes. As you can see for both VOS and Exos, the wide range of available features have been rolled up into 3 levels. The base level is included with the purchase of the universal hardware, and that provides many of the features that were previously only available from one of the optional licenses. This means that there's only a need for an additional license if you need Xcyq support, for example, or one of the advanced core networking features that's mentioned on the slide. As before, the licenses are a one-time fee and they're permanently applied to the switch. So there's no more Edge or Advanced Edge or those types of difficult to understand licenses. Everything outside of the core networking and Xcyq features is now just included in the base. So this means that the 5520 can be used for a wide range of enterprise edge and aggregation tasks, all with out-of-the-box cloud-based management. You have a range of port configurations, different personas, and flexible licensing, and importantly, the freedom to repurpose if required. It's also worth mentioning Extreme's new universal lifetime warranty. The warranty includes a replacement service, lifetime software updates, and lifetime software upgrades, all included. 90 days of GTAC support is also provided. And of course we recommend our additional support services, but they're not mandatory for the universal hardware. As before, Extreme also offers a complete range of additional maintenance and support options. Depending on the business and the criticality of the deployment, you have the freedom to choose between the basic warranty all the way to our 4-hour on-site. And our GTAC is also there to support you 24/7 with expert help. So in summary, here's the complete buying process for a 5520. Choose the hardware platform with the best physical port configuration and PoE support for your application. Select any required Vim modules and additional power supplies. Add one of the 2 optional licenses if required. Add in some maintenance and then deploy with whichever operating system you require. There's plenty of more information about the 5520 on Extreme's website, as well as full documentation via the Extreme portal. So take a quick look at the datasheet for more details of the switch's performance and capabilities. So, as we've covered much of the universal hardware benefits already, let's take a bit of a quicker look at the 5420 universal hardware switch. Unsurprisingly, most of the high-level benefits are similar to the 5520, as they're driven by the universal hardware concept. However, the 5420 provides 14 unique models and supports a range of copper configurations as well as a fiber version. There's various PoE and uplink options as well. The available 5420 models are split into 2 main variants, the M models and the F models. So let's take a look at those in more detail. The M models provide 2 modular power supply slots as well as a modular fan. So you can have 2 hot swappable supplies supporting a wide range of PoE abilities for mission critical edge applications such as connectivity and power for the latest Wi-Fi 6 access points, or other power hungry devices such as digital signage or pan and tilt video cameras. For very high performance edge applications, there's also a multi-rate variant with a 90 watt PoE. The F models, on the other hand, have fixed fans and a fixed PSU for a simple configuration and simpler spares. However, there's still the option of adding an additional redundant power supply to provide more reliability, especially when powering business critical devices such as Wi-Fi access points and surveillance equipment. Again, a range of configurations and PoE types are available to ensure that the 5420 is a perfect fit for multiple advanced edge applications. Just like the 5520, the licensing is also greatly simplified, with everything rolled into one base license and 2 optional licenses. Universal licensing provides the same easy-to-understand structure for the 5420 as I described earlier for the 5520. And the universal limited lifetime warranty is also provided for the 5420, along with a 1-year subscription Cloud IQ pilot license to get our customers up and running out of the box with full cloud management. And to make that even easier, the instructions for onboarding the 5420 to Cloud IQ are included in the box. Again, there's more information about the 5420 on Xstream's website, as well as Xstream's portal. So take a quick look at the datasheet for more details of the switch's performance and capabilities. So what's next for universal hardware? Well, obviously Xstream have plans for many more universal hardware switches, but the next one in line is the 5320. The 5320 will provide 24 and 48 port PoE and non-PoE configurations, as well as a 16-port version that will be optimized to run fanless up to certain temperature thresholds. So this will allow it to be used in places like open office areas where performance is important but noise from fans could be an issue. The 5320 will come with a single non-redundant power supply, and it will support 370 or 740 watt PoE budgets. So keep an eye on Xstream's website for more information on the 5320. It's due to be released soon. So before we move on to the demos, I'd like to go over the universal licensing just one more time, just a little bit more detail. I can start by stating the reason why we're introducing universal licensing. It's to remove complexity. Now, licensing complexity is not unique to Xstream. I'm sure many of you know and have experienced the joy of complicated licensing from many vendors. It's time consuming, it presents unnecessary barriers to deployment, and it's just annoying and gets in the way of fast moving business. So in addition to that, it can also be difficult to keep track of licensing when subscription terms are mixed and the licenses themselves aren't even centralized. These types of issues are the primary drivers behind Xstream's universal licensing. We want to provide simplicity and flexibility of licensing and to allow all licenses to be managed from a single central cloud management GUI. Starting with our portable pilot management licensing, more and more pooled and device agnostic licensing is being planned and implemented. Now, just to make sure the Q&A session isn't too long, it's worth mentioning that we are aware there are customers that don't want or cannot use cloud management. There are also customers that have a mix of the new and the old, even managed service providers with specific licensing needs. We're aware of the need to support such cases, and I would encourage you to speak to your local account executive or systems engineer directly if you feel you have a case which universal licensing isn't suitable for. As in the past, Xstream will always endeavour to be flexible and support all the customer cases we can. So that's it from me. Hopefully this has answered at least some of the questions you may have had around the universal hardware and licensing, but feel free to use the Q&A if you have any specifics you'd like covered.
Hello everyone. I'm here today to talk about our wireless portfolio and what solutions it can bring for you and help automate the connectivity for the clients in your network. And always keep in mind the security on the edge, whether we solve it with policy or more in depth with network access control. If we look to any network, it depends a lot on what kind of solutions you want to resolve and in what verticals you or your customer is operating. At Xstream, we see 3 different areas with 3 different solutions. And for a lot of situations, all 3 can solve the customer problems. Let's take a close look at the 3 variants we offer. Well, first, do you have a lot of logistics in a distributed environment? For example, it can be the logistics of products or goods, or any other thing you need to transport. Or you are in a manufacturing business with a large area. Then you probably need to cover a big area and have, for the most part, low data utilization, but time critical. For this time, we have our distributed wing solution. The access points can handle clients, make wireless bridges, function as controllers, or even operate in a standalone mode. Lots of solutions with a very large range of antennas for outdoor environments. Second, do you have a building, campus, or enterprise with branch locations and want to have the same user experience on your wireless as on your wired ports with the same policies, and you also want the full automation with our fabric technology supporting it, and you still want your controller in your own data center? We offer Xstream Campus Controller Solution. We already consolidated the operating system for the APs with the Wing solution when we evolved to Wing 7. So the access point can discover if it is connecting to a campus controller or a Wing controller. Thirdly, we offer a totally cloud-based solution with an operating system especially created to have the management and control plane separated from the data plane. So manageability is in the cloud and data stays local. Depending on the type of solution, we offer different product sets. Although apart from the controllers, we are already consolidated the operating systems belonging to the on-prem solutions to a single operating system, which is Wing 7. Depending on your choice, we offer different license models, whether it's perpetual or subscription-based. So let's do a little reflection on what we have today. Approximately 1 year ago, we started with the offering of our Wi-Fi 6 access points. Quite a portfolio where we distinguish the cloud-based access points or solution with the on-prem distributed or centralized access points. Of course, there is also a split in the capability of the access points towards high-performance access points with 4x4 MIMO and channel bonding, PoE redundancy and or PoE forwarding, depending on the model, the 500 series. These access points are mostly seen in high density and or open environments. We also have value access points, where 2x2 MIMO is often enough. And we might need more coverage per room, like classrooms, care centers, stores, or any other environments where you might have more walls and less density per square meter. These are the 300 series. And last but not least, we have our tri-radio access points, where the third radio is a dedicated sensor to be able to scan the network, which then can be used to detect rogue access points or clients in combination with air defense tooling, or can be used for locationing with RTLS to see what's on the network and where it's on the map, or both. Nice side note is that the 400 series also have 2x2 MIMO on the 2.4 GHz and 4x4 MIMO on the 5 GHz band. All access points have Bluetooth low energy capability as well as dual 5 gig support. Coming back on the differentiation of the access points based on operating systems, the cloud-based access points on the top half of the screen are recognized by the C for internal antennas or CX for external antennas. They run Hive OS. And the access points on the bottom half of the screen, recognized by an I for internal antennas or E for external antennas, run Wing 7. And last but not least, I want to emphasize on the outdoor possibilities we have with the Wing products. For just an example, the AP560 has an access point and antenna in one box and can do channel bonding with 2 radios over 5 gig. But there's a separate antenna guide with all the details. Going forward, we will further consolidate our portfolio with universal hardware. You have already heard my colleague talk about running multiple operating systems on the switching part of the portfolio. Well, we do the same for our access points. Meaning, we will, for example, take an AP305C, which then can run Hive OS and Wing 7. Once you onboard the access point within Xcyq, it gives you the option how to boot the access point. Either it's cloud-based and will directly be monitored and managed by the cloud, or it will boot with Wing 7 and try to search for a local controller. Our big goal is to simplify things, like a single hardware SKU. So it doesn't matter in what part of the world you boot up your AP. The country code is then set depending on the location, and also simplify the licensing and warranties, and further cloudify the portfolio. Now we have explained what we currently have in our portfolio and where we want to go to. Let's see the time and in green what we have at the moment. Universal hardware comes with multiple personality. Some say it's dual boot and some say it's triple boot. So let's say there are two ways of selecting operating systems, either HiveOS and Wing 7 knows the mode to operate in. A centralized mode of distributed mode. As from January, we started to deliver the new AP305C or CX and AP410C and C8. We selected these access points because they already have a TPM chip on board and are able to connect to Xcyq. So we only had to add a second operating system, and therefore we needed to look at the amount of memory. The amount of memory needs to be 1 gig to support the two operating systems. Last week we launched the wall plate access point, the IP302. To set the we added it to the set of the universal hardware APs. So Q1 of calendar year 2021 is a beautiful new start of the year. Later this year, we will make the C versions of the 500 series dual bootable. Memory is already 1 gig, so no issue at that point. To protect the install base, we will continue to drive forward with the dedicated single boot wing access points until further notice. We will do our best to make the new access points more attractive. So new installations and new opportunities will go with the universal hardware. But coming back on simplifying the portfolio by reducing the number of SKUs, it is worth mentioning that we already started with the country certifications for the AP510 series. We were able to collapse the US, Canada, rest of the world and Europe under one world SKU with the -WW extension. As soon as the access points onboard in Xcyq, it follows the local regulatory domain rules from the country it operates in. So how do we recognize the newer access points with our dual boot capable and have more memory if we have the same model number? We decided to place a green sticker on the label of the access point, as well as on the outer label on the box. And when you connect them, the access points boot initially with HiveOS. When boarding the access point in Xcyq, you will notice a welcome message. And it simply makes you choose between onboarding as a cloud-based HiveOS, which is the first choice, or boot as a wing access point, which is the second choice. If you choose a wing version, then the access point will continue to boot and start to look for a local controller. If the access point is in wing mode, it is still possible to connect to Xcyq via a navigator license, and still possible to convert back to HiveOS if the access point is needed in another setting. If you have a cloud environment, but you choose the wrong setting and start in wing mode, it will most certainly not find a wing controller. Well, to convert back to HiveOS, it can be done via the CLI, either via SSH connection or via the USB-C connector, the serial connector. For the AP305C, the connector is at the bottom as seen on the picture, and for the AP400 series, it's on the side of the access point. Some support articles are written to help you with the correct commands and correct sequence to reboot the access points in another mode or with another operating system. I already talked about the latest addition of access points to the portfolio, which is the wall plate access point. My colleague this morning went over most of the specifications, but just to add and clearly state that this access point is part of the universal hardware strategy and consolidates all features of the cloud-based AP150, the AP3912 in a centralized environment, and the AP7612 in a distributed environment. In another session, we specifically talked about Xiq Essentials, the software tools to make Xcyq richer with possibilities to localize your assets, defend your network against potential threats, control the IoT and guests, and use compliance testing. Of course, the software needs the hardware. And here you can see the timeline, how the Essentials came to market with the first access point supported. Needless to say that we have our goal set to have no hardware dependencies in next month, on March. We are on our journey to stratify, simplify, and cloudify our portfolio. Sometimes it's good to reflect on what is already achieved. And due to the multiple acquisitions, we made sure we had all the right ingredients on board to solve problems, create solutions, and automate the network. Therefore, we took a close look at our software portfolio as well as our hardware portfolio and made the first steps early 2020 to consolidate, and with our last acquisition, we added the possibility to cloudify everything. We worked hard last year, but we can say we managed to stick to our story and the journey is not finished. So we will continue to nicely glue it all together to one single strategy, to solve multiple problems and offer more solutions with as less hardware as possible. Now, this is the end of my story about universal hardware, and now we open for questions and answers.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you on our TechTalk 5.0. My name is Piotr Szołkowski, and it's my pleasure to lead a small demonstration during this session. You have just learned from Simon about our first universal switches that can run VOS and Exos operating system. But you may ask yourself how we can choose which operating system to run on the switch. It's very easy and intuitive. Universal switches comes from the factory with two versions of software pre-installed. Switch will boot by default with Exos operating system, but during this first boot, you may choose an alternative VOS operating system. Let's have a look how we can do it and how the booting process will look like. We will need a console cable connected to the switch to have a look at the booting process. Our new hardware comes with two options to connect your switch to terminal software on your computer. Option 1 is to use standard RS232 RJ45 connection, which is available on the back of the switch. As most of the modern computers do not have RS232 connector, we have another option, which is a micro USB port on the front of the switch. The micro USB port is supported with prolific 2303 chipset, which allow you to connect your switch directly to USB port on your computer with a regular USB cable. I will use my USB dongle with RS232 connection to the switch on my MacBook Pro. The serial speed of the new hardware is 115/200. I turn on the switch and you can see a booting progress. After approximately 15 to 20 seconds, you will see a new 5520 boot menu. You have 30 seconds to press space and then you are able to select all available boot options. One of them is change the switch OS to VOS. If selected, then the switch will be automatically converted to VOS operating system. I will not choose this option, but will proceed with default option that boots Xos operating system. In a few moments, we are able to log into the switch with admin account and no password. Here we have the second chance to convert our switch to VOS. Default script that runs after first login will ask if you would like to change OS to VOS. After you choose no, the VOS operating system that is pre-installed will be removed from the switch and you will have an Xos box. But do not worry if you missed it and you still want to have VOS operating system. There is a second option to change your operating system at will with a simple software upgrade. There are two software images available for 5520 switch family, one for Xos and one for VOS. If you want to change an operating system from Xos to VOS, use standard upgrade procedure, but instead of Xos, use VOS image for the upgrade. The same applies if you want to change VOS to Xos, but then you have to use commands specific to VOS operating system upgrade. As you can see, the switch notice that you want to change operating system and ask for confirmation. As change of personality does a full format of flash and all configuration files will be lost. When we agree to it, the switch after reboot will be converted to VOS operating system. The whole conversion process takes approximately 4 minutes. At the end of it, you will see a notice that the process of converting Xos to VOS was completed successfully. The switch will reboot and run newly installed VOS operating system. Soon you will get the login prompt. Not everyone likes such approach with CLI access for switch management and personality change.
Is that
The Matrix? Yeah.
do you always look at it and code it?
Well, you have to. The image translators work for the construct program. But there's way too much information to decode the Matrix. You get used to it. I don't even see the code. All I see is blonde, brunette, redhead.
So if you don't see blonde, brunette or redhead, we have a third option with graphical user interface available in Xcyq Cloud. First of all, log into your Xcyq account. Now quick add your device to Xcyq, choosing required operating system. In our case, it will be Xos. It can take up to 10 minutes for your switch to be added to our cloud management system. If you want to change the personality of this switch to VOS, it is a very easy process. Just select device, choose action, and you will find there an option to upgrade device to VOS. The whole converting process is in the background is exactly the same as we have already seen. The biggest difference is that we do not need any serial cable, any software for the upgrade. The whole conversion process takes up to 15 minutes. After that time, you may need to refresh Cloud View to see your converted switch informations like new hostname, model and firmware version. The opposite process to convert VOS to Xos looks exactly the same. You choose Action, select Option, change OS to Xos, and then confirm the switch conversion. Now we have to wait another 15 minutes to have the switch converted back to Xos. Let's change the topic now to our new universal wireless access points. I hope that everyone knows how to add an access point to Xcyq Cloud. The question is if we know how to change the personality of our universal hardware. Once again, with Xcyq Cloud it is very easy. We have to select access points that we want to convert to Wing, choose Action and select option Change OS to Wing. The access point will reboot and try to connect to Wing local controller. As you know from the Roland's presentation, we have two possible options for local controllers: native Wing VX9000 or NX hardware controllers and Extreme Campus controller. Our access points will connect to one or the other automatically, depending on the infrastructure configuration. I have my infrastructure configured for VX9000 local controller, so I will use Wing Manager to see if my access point was successfully adopted. As you can see, we have 3 devices online, 2 redundant VX9000 controllers and my access point 305C. So how we can convert the AP back to Xcyq Cloud? We have to log into our access point, and there is a command operational mode that allows me to go back to Xcyq Cloud or connect to the access point to Extreme Campus controller. I will revert the access point back to Xcyq Cloud. As we can see, the access point is back in Xcyq Cloud. I will once again repeat the process of converting access point from cloud to Wing, but this time my infrastructure use DHCP option 78 and points to Extreme Campus controller. So let's log into Extreme Campus controller. As we can see, my access point adopted to my controller and is ready for use. I hope that those demonstrations were useful and showed advantages and easy of use of our universal hardware. Thanks for watching.